Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of the VSR Season 11 Finale, live exclusively on TRTN. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here in the municipality of Heusden, Zolder, Belgium, here at the home of the former home, I should say, of the Belgian Grand Prix. We're here at the Circuit Zolder, the second most popular circuit then in Belgium, founded in 1963, comprised of 10 turns and 2.4 miles of FIA Grade 2. This sees racing from the European Truck Racing Championships, the NASCAR Euro Series, and its hallmark event since 1983 has been the 24 Hours of Zolder. Tonight, though, it will host the final round of Season 11. And with 2 of the 4 Drivers' Championships already having been wrapped up last week in Bathurst, that being the Platinum and Silver Drivers' Championships, we now focus our attention to the remaining categories, as tonight's round will focus heavily on the championship fortunes of Gold and Bronze. And so, taking a look on board with Ian Oates, one of said competitors in that Gold Championship. Picking up where we left off then in Bathurst, it was another win for Carlos Dijkstrom to secure his championship in Platinum. Antonio Angeletta to Silver Division's championship title in the last round at rounds 9. Chris Davies taking his second win of the season in Gold. Mantas Mantinho back on solid winning form with back-to-back victories from round 8 and now round 9 as well. Puts him ever closer to Ryan Castle to compete for the Bronze Drivers' Championship for the run-in towards round 10. Taking a look then at the championship standings for the drivers, and with Platinum already wrapped up, we can see here Carlos Dijkstrom took the title over Fate Galaxy and Will Friedman as part of your top 3 there. 323, 252 and 243 points respectively. Kieran Rodd in 4th and Alan Alexander rounds out the remaining top 5 in Gold. It's the case here where only 19 points separate our 2 front runners. On screen at the moment then is Ian Oates second in this championship, with Lee Evans leading by 19 points as mentioned before. Tom Barlow in 3rd with Chris Davies in 4th, Declan Anderson in 5th with Mr. Burney in 6th, Solomon Bosworth in 7th. Taking a look then down towards Silver, see that the championship already concluded, now leading by 102 points to the nearest driver. Antonio Angeletta has properly strong-armed this competition, finding himself head and shoulders ahead of the field, with Robert Ogan in 2nd, Andres Tijavari in 3rd, and Thomas Pumerol in 4th. It's Sean McNally who rounds out that top 5, with Lewis Perslow in 6th, with Julian Aquati behind in 7th. Callum Gray makes 8th, and Matthias Gololons in 9th. So, the second of 2 available championships in tonight's round, the Bronze Championship. With only 6 cars remaining among them, we'll be focusing primarily on the fortunes of 2 here. It's finding themselves separate by about 15 points on the run-in towards tonight's round. Mantas Mantinho, having regained good ground in the last 2 weeks of racing, finds himself ever closer to Ryan Castle, now with 304 points in the lead of the Bronze Championship. Looking on to the timing charts today to find it's a bit of a smaller grid than one would have expected, but with, of course, half of the available championships already having been concluded, with Platinum and Silver. Silver being one of the more popular championships in contention at the midway of the skill bracket for this series. We now focus our attention to Bronze and Gold, but it appears to be the case then, in the absence of Mantas Mantinho, Ryan Castle finds himself not only leading by 15 points over Mantinho in 2nd, but without any kind of real competition for him in tonight's round. The only other driver here, Peter Mikolas, isn't yet part of the Bronze Championship title fight. Too far away then to catch up to the leading pair. In terms of things in Gold though, and this will steal the show away for the majority of today's race, coming up, of course, 20 minutes of qualifying coming up around the corner, and an hour and 15 minutes of racing as per the current itinerary suggested there in the calendar for the final round, with 1 mandatory stop for fuel and tyres. We're told of changeable conditions on the horizon, with no current guarantees over whether or not it'll be definitively a dry or wet race. It could very well be somewhere planted in the middle. You see then for Evans, he's one of 2 in that Gold Championship fight, and these 2 have been at each other's throats over the course of the season thus far. In the case here of Evans, holds that ground over Oates, but not on the timing charts right now, with Oates in 2nd, Evans in 4th. It's looking to be an interesting day between the 6 and the 44 in their hopes for a championship title. We'll be hoping to get interviews out of drivers, champions over the course of this broadcast. After today's race, we've already got confirmation of an interview with Antonio Angeletta. We also are awaiting confirmation on interviews then for Platinum and Bronze. We will also be getting on board with either of the 2 current candidates for this championship in gold. So depending on who it is tonight, we'll be getting on with them to discuss the season at large for them. So it could be Oates, could be Evans. That one is still firmly up in the air. Before we get towards the end of free practice then, before we're into 20 minutes of qualifying here at the circuit Zolder, a look at the balance of performance. BMW losing 40 kilos on the M6, conversely gaining 13 on the M4. Porsche in the 991 Type 2 losing 40 kilos and conversely losing only 7 on the 992. Aston Martin's V8 Vantage losing 14 kilos, with Mercedes losing 11 kilos, so very spry weight there for Oates and Evans, and that's to go up against the Ferrari in today that finds himself with 3 kilos shed away. So great current change in ballast there for drivers like Davies, Thomas Pumerol, Peter Mikolas and Declan Anderson. We've also just seen there Wayne Trigg now joining in for Ferrari from the paddock. We find as well the case for McLaren, they're gaining 5 kilos. Of course, BMW, as mentioned before, gaining 13 on the M4. It's Ford on the short end once again, and in the absence of some of the heavy hitters from over on the Platinum category, of course, with their championship already wrapped up, we'll focus our attention to the remaining silvers from Ford, Angeletta and Tishavari. Sadly, no qualifying predictions for tonight, so we're going into this one blind, and it seems to be the case that across the board here we'll be going into this blind. As still, again, no suggestion on what the weather could be like. We've seen wet races and dry races alike here in Zolder, and it can get messy on both fronts. This does suggest a very interesting race at hand here for the end of Season 11. And so forwarding on a message given to us from some of the higher-ups over at VSR, the confirmation that yes, there is the active process for a Season 12, but I cannot disclose, sadly, when that's going to be, as that one is, at the moment, top secret. We are aware, though, a Season 12 is in the works for VSR, but it won't be ready straight away, so hopefully we'll get more information out of Angeletta, one of the drivers involved in the higher-up decision-making over at VSR in recent months. We'll see that over the course of the Silvers interview after today's race. Currently now up to 14 drivers with the recent introduction of Joop Overbeek in the Silvers. Now in the number 84 Ferrari joins the paddock there to make the 14th car on today's grid. Declan Anderson fastest then in the number 9, with Ian Oates in second, Andres Tishavari in third. Antonio Angeletta, can see there, I believe may have listened to our messages from a few weeks ago where we found it rather confusing that yes, he was a silver division champion driving in a gold Mustang, and now he seems to have dropped the hue down a little bit there. Now a silver 01, making 4th fastest at the end here of free practice. Lee Evans in 5th, with Chris Davies in 6th. Thomas Pumerol in 7th, Peter Mikolas in 8th. We see here for Purslow 9th. Castle, as it stands then, with no expected competition from Mantinho, remains in 10th. Now all it's going to require for his on to the championship is just to finish today's race in the absence of Mantinho. He'll hold that ground and stay on in the lead of the Bronze Division Championship. In terms of the odds between Evans and Oates, in the case of Oates, he's got to outscore Evans by 20 points, not 19. If he goes 19 points, they go level at the end of the championship, and then it would be decided on number of race wins, which Evans has plenty more of. You see then in the case of Evans, he just went across the line there at the end of free practice to 3rd fastest for Mercedes, so a gold 1, 2, 3. And this may very well be the first time since the introduction of the Platinum category for Season 11, originally introduced back in Season 9, if I'm not mistaken, that we have had no Platinums on the grid. A very, very stark callback to how things used to be ran back in Season 8 and Season 7 when we first got on board with VSR for their official broadcasting. At the end of today's session then here in free practice, Anderson fastest by just over 3/4 of a second for the run in towards qualifying today. We can see still bright and sunny conditions.
Green light. Go.
In towards qualifying we go. 20 minutes then, and a silent start there interrupted by the sound of a 5.4 litre. Means one of the Mustangs is coming out onto the track, and it's Andres Tishavari in the number 87 making his way down onto the track now. Then leaving the paddock, Anderson and Angeletta will stay on board here with Tishavari, who will be our sort of unofficial track guide to the circuit Zolder. Unlike another popular Belgian circuit, the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, which we visited only a few weeks ago here on VSR, this one is far more petite than the largest of the Grade 1s. This one almost feeling a little bit like a sort of Western European take on, I'd say, like Brands Hatch, for example. It's a very tight circuit, very technical when it needs to be. You see, though, immediate troubles then down through to the Terlemenbocht complex. This entire area, by the way, comprises just a single recognized corner, turn 7. Zolder is quite the fantastic little track as well. Almost oversized go-kart track vibes about it. Very, very tight racing to be found. We've seen across both GT4 and GT3, so it ought to be rather interesting to see what the VSR grid can make of it today, even on dwindling numbers in the final round of Season 11. Down through then to the Jackie Xbox, we stay on board with Andres Tishavari to be the first flying lap of qualifying today for our track tour of the circuit Zolder. Starting things off then on this opening straight in towards Erst corner, turn 1. Very sharp, deceptive left-hander. Difficult to properly gauge what the ideal line is through these first couple of corners, given just how open-ended they are for this starting sector. Now that'll be a stark contrast here. Out through Canal Box we go at turn 3 as we head now in towards sector 2, starting here at Lucien Bianchi Bot. Down towards the Kleiner chicane. Literal translation meaning little chicane. The drivers are almost incentivized to clip those 2 curbs, so it will be a bit of a stress on the suspension as we head in towards sector 2, down through Butte Curve at turn 6, in towards the Terlemenbocht. This entire complex, as we mentioned before, comprises a single corner here at turn 7. This winding section, feeling almost like it's part of some super special stage in a tarmac rally. Very, very difficult to navigate side by side, but this is where it opens back up for the run down into this sharp corner here at Bolderberg Haspelbocht. That's one of the longest corner names, I believe, in motorsports at the moment. Down through towards turn 10, having come out of the very shallow turn 9 complex at the Jochen Rindt box, down through Jackie Xbox now as we make our way down towards the line for Andres Tishavari. Now, there is the high chance that he could invalidate down through the Terlemen, so we'll see across the line. Tishavari does lay in a fastest time for the time being, 1:31.247. Then from behind him, the number 9, Declan Anderson, no time set. Then from behind him, Antonio Angeletta goes fastest by 2/10. And immediately back into the pit lane, number 196 is nearest. Here comes Mr. Bernie. No time set there for BMW, number 44 from behind, Lee Evans. Still no time set, number, looking there, 11, Peter Michaelis. And from behind him, the number 6. So Evans failed to put in a first valid flying lap. We see, though, across the line, Oates doesn't. As now, in second place overall, Ian Oates with early advantage to be found here. We also saw then the first of the times there for Lewis Perslow in the number 32. Now 5th in the session so far. Nearest to the line looks to be, as it stands then, the number 84, Joop Overbeek, just off the exit of the Jochen Rindt box in towards Jackie X at turn 10. This whole complex then comprising turn 10, it's a bit of a reductive numbering process here. This would have otherwise been several numbers higher, but they only recognize 10 of those corners. Down across the line then, Overbeek, no time set. The number 87, I believe there. Was that the number 87? Yes, there was some trouble for Andres Tishavari as he's coming back into the pit lane. Number 9 down towards the line. So here comes Declan Anderson. Of course, took a win on debut to gold only a few weeks ago. And across the line now, fastest by 8/10. From behind him was the 222, Thomas Pumerol. Still no time set as it stands at the moment. We'll see for Mr. Bernie. This could very likely change. 15 minutes left to go. So already 5 minutes in towards qualifying. Bernie third fastest now. The 44 goes second fastest, so forcing Antonio Angeletta down towards the second row. Lee Evans now within 115 thousandths of Declan Anderson at the front of the field. We see Ian Oates joins up alongside him. Of course, these two, your current competitors for the Gold Championship, and will be the focal point of tonight's race in the absence of competition in bronze, leaving Ryan Castle without the presence of Mantas Mantinho to cruise on in the next hour and 15 minutes of racing to an easy runaway title in bronze. One that he has still nonetheless fought for over the course of the season. You see for the number 84, Joop Overbeek making their way back down towards turn 10. We saw a moment ago was the number 77 of Ryan Castle across the line. Number 84, Overbeek, now to the line. From 14th goes 5th, so better late than never. After nearly 7 minutes worth of qualifying carried out there, with no valid time set, Overbeek lays in a top 5 time, second fastest in the silvers, with Robert Ogan currently fastest for Aston Martin in the silvers. Your gold lead at the moment then, Declan Anderson, as he crosses the line, stays in that current fastest time position, and this is going to be quite the ground shaker here. The 208 is into this session, a lone platinum Ford. It's Will Friedman from 3rd in the platinum standings. And a driver we've seen plenty of driving feats off of in the last couple of weeks across multiple championships is back into today's grid. There was a peculiar end of season run for quite a few of the Platinums, so much so that they starting from the back of the field on some occasions. We also see Mantas Mantinho is into the session, so the Bronze Championship has just reignited. 15 points in between Mantinho in 2nd and Castle in 1st. We also see recently then a change of position for Ian Oates, goes from 3rd to 1st in his last lap just gone, 1:29.702, the new fastest time of today's session. Number 77 across the line, Ryan Castle, stays in that top 10 at the moment, but no longer in anywhere near a position to lead by category. That's for Mikulas at the moment, who's 6 positions up the road from him, 4th overall in today's session. A component of the top 5, Mikulas leads bronze. 84 nearest. Overbeek was recently into that top 5. Can he return to it? Across the line he goes, and he goes fastest. I wouldn't have expected that one from out of left field there. The 84, new fastest time, 1:29.610. And what a performance we're seeing thus far here from Joop Overbeek. The 84 now fastest in the session over Anderson by 22 thousandths, and then over Oates by 92 thousandths. Front to back, 3 drivers comprised by less than a tenth of a second, end on end. We are about to see, though, for Ian Oates, the chances of a rebuttal, but up in front of him, it's Lee Evans to the line from 5th and stays there. So Oates, what is the current returning volley from the number 6? He pulls over down through turn 10, leaving the 70, I believe they're looking there, the 72. Do we have a 72 on the grid? No, 32. Really do need to get my eyes checked. As across the line there goes Lewis Perslow. We also see a recent shift there. Robert Ogan for Aston Martin goes into the top 5. We also see for that of Chris Davies now into the top 10. Number 28. 2-time champion. And up until this season, held the all-time record for most amount of championships. But after we saw Carlos Disch, who used to go by that of a White Doctor in the last couple of seasons, go across the line last round to secure the Platinum Championship, we do find ourselves staring down the barrel now of a new record holder, with Disch 3 championships to Davies 2. That doesn't take away from the legacy he carries on this grid. Chris Davies still 8th in the session so far as we head up towards the halfway mark of qualifying here in round 10. Nearest to the line then, number 87, Andres Tijavari. Currently 4th in the silvers, 11th overall. Down to the line he goes. And from behind him, the 222 of Thomas Pumerol. We have got word as well the 208 is out on track at the moment. Tijavari stays where he is for the time being, so catching on to see here from Will Friedman's point of view as he makes his way down through to the run of things at Lucien Bianchi-Bot. We'll stay on board with the number 208. I'll be back to you in just a moment's time. It is looking to be a very strong performance, though, from this one, indeed. Down towards the line then for Will Friedman, out through turn 10. Across the line he goes, only 8th fastest in that first lap set. 1 minute 30.520 for the 208, working with half the time of the rest of the grid in qualifying so far. And taking a look, Overbeek still holds his ground there over Anderson, but Anderson's on his way down through to Bolderberg Harshbeldbocht at turn 8. Evans just down towards the line now, joins into the fray here to make 4 drivers front to back, but can he go at the head of the field? No, not this time around. He's 200ths up the road from Ian Oates and 500ths away from Declan Anderson, and only 700ths and 2,000ths on top of it away from Overbeek. So this is an ultra claustrophobic top 4 we're seeing here. 4 drivers front to back by less than a 10th. Number 9 across the line, and Anderson still couldn't find the 22 thousandths necessary to take pole position away from Jorb Overbeek. The number 28 across the line a moment ago, Chris Davies into the top 5. 129 thousandths away. And dare I say it, he's only a few hundredths away from being within the same margins, currently confining Anderson, Evans and Oates. Number 29 across the line. In the case there of Wayne Trigg, now 14th in the session. We also get word there, of course, Mantinho returns to the session to defend his chances at a championship. Otherwise, he would have been powerless to see that gap continue to open, with Castle still leading in the bronze division. Right now, though, it's a case where Mantinho has to outscore Ryan Castle by about 15 points on the run in towards tonight's round. Otherwise, the championship will go to the 77. Down across the line then goes Mantas Mantinho in the number 26. No time set at the moment. 7.5 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. Number 87, Tishavari, leaps up through the order there to 8th in his last lap just gone. It's worth pointing out we've got 10 cars here within a second of that fastest lap, front to back. Number 44 across the line a moment ago, and in the case there of Lee Evans, still stays in at that 3rd place. Now his priority above all things is to stay ahead of Ian Oates, as this looks to be one of 2 championships fought in tonight's round, with of course platinum and silver already having wrapped up. Looking here for gold, Evans still holds the cards here with 19 points worth of a lead. Oates has to outscore him by 20 points, otherwise it'll go down to based off of most amount of wins if they draw on points at the end of the season. With Evans having more wins over Oates in division, that would go in the case of the 44. Davies now part of that top 5. On to another flying lap. Number 29 across the line a moment ago for Wayne Trigg. 15th now for the Ferrari. Number 84 nearest to the line. And it has been an absolute stunner of a session here for Jorb Overbeek in the silvers, looking at his first possible chances of an outright race win if he's able to put in performance like this over the course of the next hour and 50 minutes of racing. Will Friedman joins the fray now, and we have a top 5 by less than a 10th of a second front to back from each other. That is absurd to think about when you take a look at the gaps we're playing with here. 22 thousandths between 1st and 2nd, 5 thousandths between 2nd and 3rd. And having a glance in here to be the case where it's 45 thousandths of a second between 3rd and 4th, and then only 200ths away from 4th to 5th. We see it's getting even closer, though, in the case of Davies and Angeletta behind, because as it stands to be the case, 37 thousandths away from 5th is Chris Davies. And Antonio Angeletta right now 76 thousandths of a second. So super close margins here. This may very well be the closest qualifying session we've ever seen on VSR. We've seen some very close ones before, but I don't think many match what we're seeing here. It's only once you get out towards Mr. Bernie in 8th do we start going by 10ths instead of hundredths and thousandths of seconds, as they find themselves currently separate by 102 thousandths, so just over a 10th. Absolutely razor thin, though. Down to the line goes the 84, and that's still fastest time then, 129.610. Number 26 nearest. We check in then for Mantas Mantinho, still looking to prove a point in this championship. Across the line goes Mantinho, still no time set. It's mounting frustrations here for the 26. Still no time on the chart, and there's 4.5 minutes left to go. Will Friedman has dropped himself from the equation, disqualifying himself, but with the pace that he's already proven that he can be within thousandths of the drivers leading the charge. I'd take this as an early warning sign that we're about to see him on a crusade from the back of the field, currently 16th now. We've seen him to be one of the best recovery drivers we've seen in recent championships. Across the line goes Anderson, still staying in second place. Looking here for Peter Mikulas. Behind him is Ian Oates, heading up through to turn 10. Mikulas now 10th in the session due to Friedman's disqualification. Down across the line he goes and stays where he is. Number 96, Robert Ogan, now disqualified from this quali session. A very curious footnote there here in today's qualifying. Number 77 nearest to the line. We see from behind him then his rival in the bronze division, Ryan Castle and Mantas Mantinho. See then for the 77, he holds the cards to possibly become champion in the bronze division tonight. We'll see though, can he capitalize on his advantage? Down to the line he goes from 12th and stays there. Mantinho from behind him now onto the timing charts, and it's trouble for Castle because now having a glance at it to see that Mantas Mantinho is leading the bronze division on a division pole. Now, when you consider the necessary points margin required between these two, having a look back in at the bronze standings for the Drivers' Championship, currently stands in a 15-point gap between these two, 289 to 304 points in all. In the case of Mantas Mantinho, he's going to need to outscore Castle by only 15 points. He's got more bronze division wins by looking at it here in this season. So if it came down to being level on points when they cross the checkered flag, it would be a case where Mantinho holds more cards here than Ryan Castle. Castle with only 2 wins. Mantinho, having a glance in there, with 5. And if we're not counting round 8, as it still seems to be a case where that's not been officially recognised by race control, he still holds double the amount of wins that Castle does in division with 4. So the stakes a little bit lower here for Mantinho. A 15-point gap, taking a look at the scoring charts for this championship. Currently just glancing at our notes as well. I believe we do have the scoring available to show. If not, then we'll just relay it from where we're standing. But as it currently stands to be the case, in order for him to make 15 points up, he's doing more than enough right now. Holding that first place spot with Ryan Castle in Division 4th gives them a current points gap, 50 points for the leading position by category and 25 points for 4th. That's a 25-point advantage. If Mantinho can consistently lead here in bronze and Ryan Castle does not advance up towards, say, beyond 3rd place. So Ryan Castle needs to finish 2nd now in today's race coming up. Otherwise, that bronze championship is going to fall through on him and Mantas Mantinho will become champion. So there are now quite a lot of hubbub surrounding their newly found title fight. We did think it was going to be a bit of a one-horse race in the absence of Mantas Mantinho, but he has shown out here in force in qualifying today as we drop into the last minute. To now find Evans back into the pit lane. Anderson and Overbeek still out. So it's a Ferrari 1-2 here in Zolder so far. There are still a few more players at the table, such as that of Ian Oates, still looking to emerge from the shadow here of Lee Evans on this grid. And then with his hopes to do so the same in the championship. Now taking a look at their fortunes, he's going to need 20 points over what was originally a 19-point gap. 20 points so it doesn't go level on points. And taking a look at what that's going to require him to do as these two start currently the Gold Division 2nd and 3rd as Oates pulls in. To make a 20-point gap, what he's going to have to do here is not only get up and ahead of Evans, he's going to need to hope that Evans either falls out of line there with Mr. Burney now disqualified in this session and Sean McNally joins in from silver. What he's going to need to happen on today's grid, he's going to need to have an absolutely lightning start, get up towards the lead off of Declan Anderson, which is, I would say, far easier said than done. And Gilletta, now a DSQ. And of course, his silver championship is already confirmed. No arguments surrounding that, no if, buts, or maybes. Now 4 DSQs at the end of this session. And as it stands then, Jorp Overbeek on pole here in Zolder for the final round of Season 11 of VSR. Across the line there, Anderson did draw the gap back in, but only by 12 thousandths, going from 22 thousandths worth of distance to only 10 thousandths. Close, but no cigar there. It's a Ferrari 1-2 here in Belgium. Nearest to the line, though, is going to be that number 4, Sean McNally. I believe this is actually an outlap for him because he joined in very late to the session. We see here for McNally. Likelihood of starting then 13th. We'll see, though, down towards the line for the number 4 Mercedes. Approaching the line and the end of this session, as it stands to be the case, yes, 13th for McNally. Number 77 nearest the line, Castle. From 11th at the end of this session will stay there. So Division 4 for the moment for Ryan Castle. And his hopes to retain the championship rest solely on him getting second in division. So he's going to be setting his sights there on Wayne Trigg and Peter Mikulis. But it's Joop Overbeek on an outright pole position. In the talks of the fight between Evans and Oates, their division 2nd and 3rd for gold. Oates is going to need to try and lead here off of Anderson. Or at the very least is going to need to go up to 2nd, and Evans, in order to give Oates the championship, would need to drop down to, looking at it here, 4th place, where it would be 40 points to 25. Currently bringing in, actually, that would only be 15 points. So we'd actually need to drop all the way down behind Mr. Burney, now 16th on this grid. So very, very close margins. One's much harder to beat than what we're seeing over in bronze. As we see the grid form up for the last time then, here in Season 11 of VSR, the end of qualifying with an hour and 15 minutes ahead of us here in Zolder. It's Joop Overbeek on pole position, Declan Anderson in 2nd with Lee Evans in 3rd, Ian Oates in 4th and Chris Davies in 5th, Andres Tijavari in 6th with Mantas Mantinho in 7th, Peter Mikulis in 8th, Wayne Trigg in 9th, and Thomas Pumerol rounds out the top 10. Ryan Castle in 11th with Lewis Perslow in 12th, Sean McNally in 13th and Will Friedman in 14th. Antonio Angeletta in 15th, Mr. Burney in 16th, and Robert Ogan in 17th. In terms of your major players tonight, then keep an eye out for those division pole sitters. Joop Overbeek, Declan Anderson, Mantas Mantinho, and as it stands, the only platinum on this grid, Will Friedman. In terms of overtaking spots here in Zolder, a tough one to call, but keep an eye down towards Boulderberg Haspelbocht at turn 8. And also give a quick glance out towards turn 10 at the Jackie Ixbocht. Now, Turleman, not impossible to go side by side, but you are capitalizing on driver mistake more so than trying to get the leap up on the inside. A very tight section, so a good follow-through is required there. I'd also keep a close eye on these opening couple of corners, at least for the first few laps of racing today. Your major overtaking spots in Sector 1, I would say, is starting at Störenwacht and finishing at Lucien Bianchi. Turn 3 only really being, because it's a shallow corner, a follow-through point on the track. As we wait then for the 30-second warning, we'll be catching on board with Joop Overbeek on a surprise pole position then, having turned his fortunes around from the very early starts of today's session. Now on board with not only the Silver Division lead, but the outright lead for race, for at least lap 1 of this race today. On board with Overbeek in the number 84 Ferrari. Pulling away onto the grid then in the number 84, Jorp Overbeek. The start of the formation lap here for round 10 of season 11. And taking a look then for Mantas Mantinho, we discussed just towards the end of qualifying his odds for the championship. Right now it is looking very peachy for him at the head of the field for the bronze division. He's going to need, in the case of Ryan Castle, he's going to need him to stay behind second place in order to confirm his chances at the championship. That's all it's going to take at this time for him. And that's not counting the point scoring system from the overall. We are looking at the division scoring. So if you are watching along with SimGrid open on a separate monitor, for example, like we are, it is a case where you can check that the championship scoring roster is what we're going off of, because that's what confines these division rankings. The overall championship is something that's not been discussed over the course of this season because there's been heavier emphasis on those division rankings from platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. Heading then with Overbeek on a Ferrari 1-2 here in Zolder. Oh, a bit of a step out there in the background, though, for the number 44. That was Lee Evans. Starting up and ahead of his championship rival Ian Oates. Making our way down through turn 6. The start of racing today. Making our way down through the run of things at Jochen Rindt box, this hidden turn 9, just off the exit of Bolterberg Haspel box at turn 8. Of course, a single mandatory pit stop in today's race as well for fuel and tyres. And as it seems to be the case then, dry and sunny conditions, no current threat of rain, but we do have an hour and 15 minutes worth of racing to get underway here for round 10, the season finale of VSR Season 11. 2 championships hang in the balance from gold and bronze, whereas it's an open playing field for platinum and silver here in the Circuit Zolder, down towards the line. Without further ado, for the last time here in Season 11, we are green and racing here in Zolder, and a great start then from the Ferraris up at the front row, but an even better start by the 2 Mercedes cars side by side down through to turn 1. We see great start then by Declan Anderson up and ahead of Overbeek, out through turn 1 at Erst, in towards turn 2 at Sternwacht. In the background, we see Chris Davies looking to go side by side at the moment with that of Ian Oates. Lee Evans now leads the charge in gold. Meanwhile, leading the charge, it's Declan Anderson in gold. Leading the charge in silver is Jorp Overbeek. Further down the line, though, getting a look in with the run of things at the bronze division right now to see here with Peter Michaelis. Tucked in among the fray there, side by side with Antonio Angeletta, who started towards the back end of the field, one of 4 disqualified drivers for the race start. We see now in the case side by side with Pumarol. Looking here for Mantinho, continues to lead that charge up over Wayne Trigg at the lead of the bronze division, but our focal point is going to be on that number 77. Meanwhile, number 4 into the pit lane, that's Sean McNally. Anderson leads over Overbeek. Evans currently holds on to third. We see in the background there, that's Wayne Trigg trying to get the leg up here on Mantas Mantinho, who in turn gets the leg up over Chris Davies at the back end of the top 5 out through Bolderberg Haspelbocht. Davies retakes position out through turn 9, heading up towards turn 10. It could get ugly between the pair, and it's a bump and run for Mantas Mantinho. This could affect his championship standing in bronze. Davies wiped out on the pit entry on lap 1. That one seemed, I want to say, almost looked intentional there. I can't say for certain, of course. It is quite a big claim to make of any driver, pardon me. We see then in the fight for the gold championship, Oates needed a good start, but he does have one, but not the one he was after. As we now get confirmation, Chris Davies is out of this race after that shocking turn of events between himself and Mantas Mantinho. down through to turn 10. We currently head up towards the Kleiner chicane. Meanwhile, word now from Antonio Angeletta, started towards the back of today's grid, now heads up second place in silver. Of course, his championship already resolute. No arguing about the silver division championship title. This is totally him with the gloves off now. In the background, we see Will Friedman looking to go side by side, now backs out of it and goes in behind Mr. Bernie. Peter Michaelis up in front of him. We see that the current number of drivers drops down to 15 off of the race start, so troubling stuff to see here on the start of the last round of season 11. We see for Mr. Bernie going on the inside of Peter Michaelis down through Boulderberg. Harshwell blocked in behind him is Perslow and Ogan. And a big squeeze here. 5 cars in all, down through towards turn 10. Michaelis holds the inside from Bernie. Bernie falls back in behind over the nose of Friedman. And Perslow and Ogan still riding along from behind. Looking back up front to see things here. Half a second between Anderson and Overbeek up towards turn 2 at Sterenbach. In towards Canal Box. Right behind them, the warring Mercedes duo of Evans and Oates. The forefront of the Gold Championship still hangs in the balance here on that second row. Mantas Mantinho at the top of the Bronze Division on today's grid. And 5th overall. Angeletta in 6th, Trigg in 7th, Tishavari in 8th, Castle in 9th. Now, when we discussed the odds on that Bronze Championship, what we said before was that, having a glance here, Ryan Castle has to get up to that division second. The way that it stands at the moment, with 15 points in between them, Mantinho, as it looks to be the case, would be outscoring him by 20 points, giving him that Bronze Division Championship. So it's only one position that Castle needs to climb, but right now up in front of him, he's fallen in behind Thomas Pumerol. And now at the back end of that top 10, it's trouble for the 77. He has a long road to climb here, but an hour and 10 minutes to do so. We do get to see here that Will Friedman right onto the rear bumper here of Mr. Bernie. Behind him, Robert Ogan out through Boulderberg, Harshwell blocked. A muddled start then for Jorp Overbeek, taken by surprise by Declan Anderson. We did say in the case when we were talking about Ian Oates' championship hopes over Lee Evans, it was a case where he would have to try to get out past Declan Anderson. And that would have been a very, very tall order for him. Following on at the moment then with Will Friedman, part of a 3-car fight for 11th overall on this track, down through towards Lucien Bianchi box at turn 4. You see for Mr. Bernie trying to emerge onto the quarters here of Peter Michaelis, who has a big step out there into the wall. Goes Peter Michaelis, wiped out at turn 5. I think he got a little too handsy there with the look of things on that first curb, if I'm not mistaken, here at turn 5. We see it start off, well, it's actually somewhat obfuscated there by the BMW, but he's gone into that corner, still holding the brakes as he turns in. The back ends come loose, and that's just plummeted the car into the wall. The BMW need not do anything in that time. And Friedman now up a free position. Still looking at the chances of 11th place. Now looking back up through the order to see things here from the duo of Mercedes cars on the second row of the grid. Ian Oates previously held the fastest lap of this race. Now goes over to Jorp Overbeek, who's back in hot pursuit then of the race lead. We'll go back on board then to see things from the Ferrari in pursuits then of that number 9. On board with Jorp Overbeek. Heading down towards the Kleiner chicane. Both of them mounted the curbs there, but it's a lot of rattle on the suspension between the two Ferraris, making their way up round to turn 6. Now into the Turleman box complex. Very easy to pick up penalties in this section because track limits super strict. We see that trouble for Anderson as he lags behind now off of his usual performance. Backs up onto the nose here of Overbeek. And with that dirty air, very nearly was the case where Overbeek understeered off track. In towards Boulderberg Harspelbocht at turn 8. And staying on board then with this fight. Quickly glancing though at the data for some of the other fights to see that things have massively crunched up now for that fight of 11th place. Bernie holds ground here up over of Will Friedman, but looking right behind to see that Robert Ogan is now firmly among the fray with Aston Martin down through to turn 10. Just up in front of them, that's Ryan Castle, as there's been trouble for Peter Michaelis. Of course, we saw down at turn 5, he drops to the back of the order. Ryan Castle still maintains his third in division, but is a long distance away from getting up towards Wayne Trigg in the bronze division second. Currently then, some of the closest fights on track. Castle fending off from Bernie, Friedman and Ogan for control of the last of the top 10 positions. And of course the elephant in the room, the fight up at the front of the pack today between Overbeek and Anderson. Also worth noting here, in the fight for Oates v Evans, getting much closer now. We see there for Ian Oates even gesturing for the inside at Boulderberg Harspelbocht. Heading up towards that same section now. We see our quad set of drivers making their way in for this fight of 10th place. Castle, Bernie, Friedman and Ogan. Out through turn 9 we go, up towards turn 10. See for Castle, ran out wide there from turn 10, so Mr. Bernie's got a chance here to go side by side. He's got the straight line speed advantage over the McLaren. The BMW now on the outside. It's going to be a tough thing to go around the outside. We saw Anderson do it at the start of the race. Can Bernie do it here on Ryan Castle to go up into the top 10? Up towards turn 2, Will Friedman still right along with Ryan Castle, as now he falls in behind Mr. Bernie, who takes up helm of 10th. We see for Castle, a little bit of a wobble there off of the run of Sterenwacht, now through Canal, as he finds himself facing both barrels of the 208. Up and around turn 4, the Lucien Bianchi box, and 2 wheels onto the gravel isn't going to help his case whatsoever. Now up and ahead goes Will Friedman. We see them with Robert Ogan now pressuring Ryan Castle. Out through Turleman Bocht. It's worth keeping an eye on this, as well as the fight between Oates and Evans and Overbeek and Anderson. But we'll go quickly to catch on with the Aston Martin, now going on the inside of the McLaren down at turn 8. Well, what's the chances of a switchback there for Ryan Castle? We'll see. Off the exit of turn 9, not particularly likely. Now seeing the 208. Motioning for the inside there, not yet committing to a lunge down at turn 10. We've seen for Will Friedman, very tactical driver, will not go for a move if he doesn't think there is a even 1% chance of there being a collision. Very precise in his efforts. New fight emerging here, Mantas Mantinho versus Antonio Angeletta. This season's Silver Division champion. Now going toe-to-toe with what could be this season's Bronze Division champion, if they stay in the current order they are. We see up in front there a bit of a frayed sense of tensions between these two up at turn 5, as things got rather square-shaped for that of Ian Oates. Now drops in much further behind his championship rival Lee Evans, and now onto the nose of this fight, building up at the back of the top 5. In the fight of the lead, things are now north of a second, so we'll go to catch on board here with Mantas Mantinho. not only leading in division, but knee-deep in this fight between himself, Angeletta, and now Ian Oates. But bear in mind, it's been a very controversial start to this race then for Mantas Mantinho. After his incident with Chris Davies down here at turn 10. And seeing now in the case here of Mantas Mantinho being pressured more and more from behind here. Angeletta, 0.2 of a second away off the exit of the Kleiner chicane. Now it's worth pointing this out. Wayne Trigg not too far away here from Mantinho. The 29 already caught in between the two main candidates of the Bronze Division Championship title. Fight up in front there. That's Ian Oates. Stepping out wide at Turleman. This could be a move for 4th place for Mantas Mantinho. Now side by side with Ian Oates on the run up towards Boulderberg Haspelbocht. Up into 4th place goes Mantinho. And Oates is scorned, seeing his chances to possibly clash for a Gold Championship title with Lee Evans start to fizzle away. As he makes his way down towards turn 10, right up to the rear bumper there it was for Mantinho. As he now finds himself facing off against the number 1 of Angeletta. Anderson leads by 0.9 of a second here, so he's not been able to get away so quickly. Now having that gap been brought south of a second by Job Overbeek, the man who started on pole position for today's session. You see in the case of Perslow is already into the pit lane and now back out of it. About an hour left to go in this race. The first 15 minutes of racing already having got underway. Anderson leads over Overbeek with Evans currently 3rd. You see in the case there for Oates now having lost the position out to Angeletta. We get the update there on the charts. Evans in 3rd, Mantinho 4th, Angeletta 5th, Oates in 6th, Trigg in 7th, Tishavari in 8th, Pumarol in 9th, and Friedman in the top 10. Bernie behind him there in 11th from behind them. Robert Ogan in 12th. Ryan Castle in 13th. Peter Michaelis in 14th. And Lewis Perslow currently 15th. Division leads then for gold Anderson, for silver Overbeek, for bronze Mantinho, and for platinum as the only driver on that grid is Will Friedman. In terms of nearest fights, Trigg v Tishavari is emerging to be one among them. We also still have Angeletta versus Mantinho to consider here, with Oates still along with. For the ride, we see there for Mantinho, trouble down at turn 10. So nearly collected there by the oncoming number 1 and the 6. As he steps out at turn 10, Wayne Trigg now within a chance to lead in bronze, but he's got Andres Tishavari from the silver category right behind him. This does present a very unique case here for that current talk of the championship in bronze, because if Wayne Trigg can get ahead of Mantas Mantinho, Mantinho only rakes in 40 points, and that would be only a 10-point advantage he holds over Ryan Castle, currently in Division 3rd, meaning it would swing away from him being an advantage for the championship, as he needs, by looks of things here, he needs 15 points to wrap up the championship. It would go away from having 20 points over Castle to having only 10. So his championship could dissolve if Trigg gets out past him. This may be one of the most important overtakes we've ever seen. Mantas Mantinho now really trying to get a bit of a wriggle on here after his incident down at turn 10, knowing that his championship is now at stake. So long as there is that number 29 Ferrari parked in his rear view mirror, there is an imminent threat. Down through to turn 8, then turn 9. And suddenly, Ryan Castle has become quite a big fan of this one here, Wayne Trigg, who could stand the ground to potentially upset Mantinho's charge to a championship and secure Castle's. You consider here from Wayne Trigg's point of view, nowhere near the championship fight. Is that rain? It is! There's rain here in Belgium. I didn't think that were possible. So far, the radar showed that we had a good chance there for drier conditions. And now, rain is hitting the track here in Zolder. This has suddenly added quite the layer to the current run of strategies for these drivers. We were warned ahead of time of mixed conditions, but looks were often deceiving as we see Anderson nearly collected there by Overbeek at Turleman. Well, this has suddenly had a lot to speak of there, and having a glance back in at the radar with it now updated, track conditions are greasy and worsening by the second here as we are anticipating heavy rain in today's race. And this has been quite a bombshell for this grid, going from dry conditions throughout practice and qualifying, and they'll be seeing a soaking wet Zolder by the end of this race. And now this is going to have to be somewhat of a Hail Mary solution here. Ryan Castle has to think of something strategy-wise and think of it fast. Those tyres will only last him so long now before the wet conditions make it impossible to drive. Problem is, going onto the wet tyres too early will lead to them overheating. They'll be useless by the time they're meant to be put to good use. Now we find ourselves in the span of the next 10 minutes in a very difficult point for these drivers. We see that Robert Ogan has taken the early initiative to come into the pit lane. We'll be looking at those tyres. Ryan Castle is in as well. He slammed the brakes on there. He was making certain he didn't pick up a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Very easy to do so here in Zolder. Ian Oates still pursuing Antonio Angeletta for that 4th place spot. This could have a huge impact on the current running order. The case of Mantas Mantinho now puts 3 seconds on Trigg. It's worth noting as well, bunching up behind Wayne Trigg is Thomas Pumerol and Will Friedman. We see for Friedman, he's really on the charge now. Pumerol in his sights. Tijavari not far off the menu there for the 208. We see running wide out of Turleman box there was Thomas Pumerol. Conditions worsening by the second here. 55 minutes of racing left to go. Anderson is in. Overbeek stays out. Evans is in. Angeletta is in. Oates stays out. Mantinho is in. Trigg and Tijavari both in. Pumerol followed by Friedman attempting a move on the run into the pit lane there. He is trying to go for it there. I mean, fair play to him. Welcome back, Chinese Grand Prix. As Will Friedman just overtook in the pit lane. Technically, there's no rule to say you can't do that until you get past the markers. So that was only another stretch of road. We see staying out is Mikolas, and having already come in is Ogan and Castle. And Peter Mikolas could find himself in trouble if he chooses to stay out any longer. Now the current strategy is here for Ryan Castle was to firm things out for the rest of this race. Now you can see we are now firmly in wet conditions. Track rating currently at damp. We're in that crossover point now to go onto those wet tyres as conditions are quickly deteriorating here in Zolder. That's really thrown quite a curveball on these drivers today. We see for Jorp Overbeek with Ogan right behind him. Keep an eye as well over to Robert Ogan with the Aston Martin, a formidable track weapon in the wet conditions. And if we're anticipating what we're being told here as heavy rain, then that Aston Martin is only going to get faster and faster in these trying conditions. Overbeek is in the number 84. Likely then to come in next will be the number 6 of Ian Oates. As Evans leaves the pit lane. Anderson back out on track as well. We see for Ryan Castle. Still yet to intercept Peter Mikolas, but we saw for Ian Oates now into the pit lane. So the leading duo now in. Anderson goes up into the lead. Peter Mikolas stays out and holds what is now an overall second, but still yet to have come to the pits. He's willing to try a little bit longer here to hold his ground before he comes in for a pit lane run as the last driver to do so in these conditions. A very early bring in then for the pit lane runs. Has now seen a procession here for Will Friedman up to a podium. Actually, just having a quick look at it here, that may not be so quickly written out in the case of Overbeek and Oates. In terms of pit lane position, Oates does hold advantage on Overbeek, but he has been in this stop for a little less time than Overbeek. Overbeek is now out and ahead. Anderson intercepting Jorp Overbeek. It's still worth considering here. Will Friedman, just off the exit of turn 8, is in behind him. A whole cornucopia of cars down through turn 8 and turn 9. You see him behind Wayne Trigg, Andres Tishavari holding off Mantas Mantinho and Thomas Pumerol. Peter Mikolas in the pit lane then is going to play a very heavy role in deciding that bronze championship. It's the case therein remains. Wayne Trigg now leads over Mantas Mantinho in the bronze as they cross the line. It's a case where Ryan Castle has to get out in front, Peter Mikolas here, in order to hold on to the chances of a championship, but he's running wide at turn 10. It's trouble for the 77. All he needs to do is go across the line and get out past the number 11, who is still yet to drop from his jacks, and get back out onto this track. The 77 does exactly that, but now he's got to survive the next 51 minutes and hope that Mantinho does not intercept Wayne Trigg. There's only a few car lengths up the road here. Mantinho now fighting with Thomas Pumerol as they barrel down towards the Kleiner chicane. Mantinho looking for a run on the inside, but it would be functionally suicide to attempt it. Pumerol goes for the inside on Tishavari, but running wide there, the back end stepping away from Mantinho as Evans is right on his rear bumper. Meanwhile, this has reignited some serious hopes for a gold championship win for Ian Oates, with Lee Evans right now Division 5th, Ian Oates currently 2nd. Having a quick glance at the points as well, they needed, as it stood, 20 points to take home that Gold Division championship title. And for Oates, currently laying in for that 2nd place. Oh, it's contact out in front there. We just see the 222 turned into the wall by Mantas Mantinho. Thomas Pumerol, the latest in line of drivers to be stricken by the 26 in this race. Back onto the topic, though, of the golds, with Evans down in Division 5th, Oates in Division 2nd. Right now, it stands to be the case where Oates will hold a 20-point advantage. 40 points to 20. And if they stay in the order they are right now, Ian Oates will claim on the Gold Championship title. The wet weather has brought the worst of conditions to us here in the final round, and it is quickly shaped up to be one of the more interesting rounds of this series, because it has massively shook the foundations of both remaining championships to be fought for, gold and bronze. Conditions so baffling, we're struggling to find the words for it. In the background, we see Tishavari fighting with, by looks of it there, Mantas Mantinho. Now nothing left to stand between him and Trigg. Down through turn 7, you can see there the yellow and red Ferrari, the primarily yellow and then sometimes red. There is Wayne Trigg, but the primarily red and sometimes yellow Ferrari is Mantas Mantinho. .4 seconds and closing there on Trigg. 49 minutes left to go. 2 championships now hang in limbo. In the case of the 44, he's swamped in and amongst traffic. His nearest target, well over, by looks of things here, upwards of 10 seconds away, with Mr. Bernie still fighting with Antonio Angeletta. You see there for Mantinho, up and ahead of what now emerges to be a fight there for the 44, runs out wide at turn 1, and that was the same story for Mantinho. Evans now falling in behind Hogan, threshing as his championship endeavors die off. But he still has 48.5 minutes left to go. He cannot fold under the pressures now, otherwise it will be too late for him. Looking here, the 208 charging for a podium, started towards the back end of today's grid. Will Friedman, a driver we nicknamed the Terminator a few days ago, because you can knock him down and that is not going to stop him. making his way up and around at turn 7 to third over Oates. This unrelenting approach then to the podium, now secured for Will Friedman for the time being. Up in front, Overbeek second, Anderson in the lead. We see for Mr. Bernie, currently looking to fight with Antonio Angeletta, but looking in behind, we saw down at Boulderberg Harshbelbocht, side-by-side action here for Evans versus Tishavari out through the Jochen Ritbolt at turn 9. Tishavari still within a chance to go for the inside. Ogun might have that opportunity also on Tishavari. Down through to turn 10. We watch here with Lee Evans. And that slight difference in strategy has been instrumental for Oates' rise to the occasion here. Right now, as it would stand, if they finish second, and I believe now, oh no, hang on just a tick. Second and fourth. Oh, my mistake. I think we were mistakenly counting another driver amongst that. No, it's second and fourth. Just a moment here. That's a 15-point advantage. So as it stands then for Oates, reluctantly, no, that it wouldn't be the case. I could have sworn there was another gold in the mix there. Or was it? Oh, this is embarrassing. We were counting because we're looking at the placard colors. We were also accidentally counting in there Will Friedman. So as it stands right now for Ian Oates, he would find himself 4 points short of the championship. You see there, stepping wide off of turn 7. In the case of Evans here, he knows right now, unless Oates can go on to lead in division, which is a tall order given he's 4th at the moment, and far off in the lead is Declan Anderson. The championship looks to be his. Number 32 brought back into the pits. That's Purslow. New fight emerging here between these two, Ogun versus Tishavari. The Aston Martin really coming into its own now as the wet weather continues here in Zolder. Current radar estimates show at least another 30 minutes of rain like this. It's starting to die down though after that 30 minutes, but no current indication on if it will die out completely. And given the amount of time left, it would be unlikely with 15 minutes of racing left with no rain that we'd go back into dry conditions so quickly. Takes a lot less time for a dry race to become a wet race than it takes for a wet race to become a dry race. "44 minutes left to go. As it stands then in the case of Purslow, looks to be our 3rd DNF of today. After McNally suffered a disconnect on the start. We also saw that Chris Davies was out of the race. We see in the background there, that's Wayne Trigg. That could be great news for Mantas Mantinho. And as it would stand to be the case then of the number 26, now leads in bronze. Wayne Trigg falls out of line there at turn 8. And that has given Mantas Mantinho the chance for the championship back as he leads now in bronze. 20-point advantage he holds over Ryan Castle in Division 3rd. He would have needed 15 points to clear him. So right now, Mantinho is within a shot of the championship. "43.5 minutes left to go then here in Zolder. The nearest fight emerging, Wayne Trigg versus Robert Ogun. We'll leave you on board with the Aston Martin. Now firmly in the middle of the mix here from P10. We'll be back to you in just a moment's time. Still on board here with Robert Ogan as that fight for ninth kicks off proper between himself and Wayne Trigg. Just under 42 minutes left to go, and the back end on the Aston Martin gets loose out through Canal. Down through Lucien Bianchi box at turn 4. He now finds himself away from a fight of 9th and a defensive fight for 10th as Andres Tijavari takes up the helm to fight with him now in the number 87 Ford. And now it looks like his fortunes are starting to change a little bit here, getting back into the groove. That's getting closer to the Ferrari in through the Turleman box. Here's the number 96 Aston Martin. We'll catch on with him a little later on, though. Taking a look at action from the front of the field, Anderson leads once more, looking at a return to form then after a bit of a hiccup in his last round appearance. Of course, taking a look back through things then for Anderson in this season. On his debut drive a few rounds ago, he won in category at round 7, looking to go for his second win of the season here on the final round of season 11. Not only is he leading in the golds, he's leading outright today over silver, platinum and bronze. But that could soon change when one considers the presence here of the 208 of Will Friedman. Antas Mantino looking to fight then with Lee Evans. Evans now getting up and past him. Right now, it still stands to be the case here where Evans will clinch the championship, albeit by 4 points. As a 15-point advantage emerges in favour of Ian Oates. See those side by side. Mantino getting his elbows out for the run in towards the Kleiner chicane. Is not willing to let this one go. He's already found himself somewhat of a marked man today. That championship pursuit is one definitely laden with controversy, especially in today's round, as he's found himself more often than not at the epicenter of some kind of incident. Questions only therein remain over how that's going to affect his run to the championship. As I spy, there's definitely grounds of a post-race investigation brewing here for Mantino, especially after his incident recently then with that of Chris Davies. 20-point advantage he'll have in this round over Ryan Castle. That would be enough to put him at the lead of the championship on the final stop here, with 39 minutes left to go. Weather radar has it at the moment. Rain to pick up in the next 10 minutes, but clear out within the next 30. Meaning we're more on the ball here for about 8 minutes of drier conditions. And I say drier as opposed to dry, because it'll only be the moment of respite before another major weather cycle. Well, that'll be a story for a different race, a different time, with only 38.5 minutes left to go here in Zolder. About 30 seconds out there from the halfway mark of this race. You saw off in the background there, Andres Tijavari out wide. Robert Ogan on the last of the Silver Division podiums. Overbeek still leading that category, with Angeletta already a champion in the Silvers, second in this race today. You see, though, trouble up in front. That, I believe, yes, is Wayne Trigg. Now falling in behind Robert Ogan.
Still a long way to go.
And Andres Tijavari now looking to take a piece here down at turn 10. Wayne Trigg falling out of form has given the championship chances back over to Mantas Mantino. And fighting on the larger front of things starts to subside. Our last remaining fights really here emerging from Trigg v Tijavari for 10th. It's become more of a survival game now for these drivers for the next 37 minutes of racing. Looking to catch on board then with the Ferrari. On board with Wayne Trigg. Stepping out wide from behind him there was that of Andres Tijavari. Currently defending his odds of 10th place. On board at the moment with Wayne Trigg, the number 29. And if you're joining us now, we've got 36.5 minutes left to go here on the final round of VSR Season 11, which current odds show the likelihood here for the two remaining drivers' championship standings that it will be the case where Lee Evans, if he is to finish where he is right now, will have enough points to stay ahead of Ian Oates in the gold championship standings, and currently in the bronze, a still developing story as recent troubles for Wayne Trigg after having overtaken Mantas Mantinho now puts Mantinho back at advantage over rival Ryan Castle. Two championships already wrapped up last week though in Bathurst. The silvers that went over to Antonio Angeletta and the platinums that went over to Carlos Disch for his third and now record-breaking number of championships here in VSR, breaking the all-time record previously held by Chris Davies at 2. Sadly, he's not here today, and we will also not be able to get a word out of him after a conversation beforehand reveals that he's not going to be present to actually be able to get on for any kind of call. So we will respect that. And we spoke to him a few weeks ago anyhow on his win on the Rookies Championship over on the NLRL Sunday League. As he's currently away, I believe out on holiday, he mentioned. So back in with Tijavari. Just over half a second away. It is worth pointing out Trigg is starting to get a bit of a wriggle on here up towards the Aston of Robert Ogan. But that gap still resides at 1.2 seconds, which is now the same story for the gap in behind him. As the last of the current fight starts to dissipate, we'll stay on board though with Andres Tijavari as things could quickly change. We've seen routinely that to be the case here in today's race. On with Tijavari. And as I say that, he brings it back in south of a second. So right off the bat, back into the conversation of a fight for 10th between these two. Down through the Bolderberg Harshbelbocht at turn 8. And a new consideration for these drivers, as we've seen throughout multiple wet races in the last couple of months. Not only is it the lack of grip, it's also the lack of visibility. Tremendous amounts of spray being kicked up here on a track already as paper thin in its middle sector as Zolder means there is very little visibility. Not only can you not see your fellow drivers, there's a pretty sizable chance with how close they've been to each other for the greater part of this wet phase of the race. They've not been able to see parts of the track, if not the entirety of the road surface up in front. Watching here is to prove my point with Will Friedman. Coming down into some of the narrowest parts of the track here at the Terlemenbocht, the amount of spray being kicked up would have made it impossible to see the current definitions of this corner. Meaning there was a pretty sizable chance if you were in the spray, you could run out wide and collect yourself on the grass, which we've seen in wet racing earlier this week over on the TRC GT Manufacturers Cup, is a one-way ticket. Friedman having to wrestle the controls there on his Ford coming up out of turn 10. And catching up once again to Wayne Trigg. On with Andres Tijavari. You see running out wide there goes both Trigg and Tijavari down through turn 10. But was not enough to facilitate a move for 10th place on either side. Action for the most part though starting to die down on track. We do see recent troubles there. Ryan Castle had the rolling white flags after trouble at Bolderberg Harshbelbocht. As it would appear to be the case, no present signs of heavy damage on that McLaren, but it could very well be a case there was perhaps a spin or he ran out wide down in that section. Of course, very heavy braking zone down in towards turn 8. As mentioned before, the majority of action now starting to die down here in Zolder. On board with Lee Evans. So you can start to see the rain is a lot lighter now than it was about 30 minutes ago. Or 20 to 30 minutes ago, roughly. Currently, weather radar's having it. It will clear out within the next 30 minutes. The rain to persist for at least another 10 in conditions like these, if not worse. So right now then, heading into this second half proper of today's final round of VSR Season 11, it's Declan Anderson leading with the fastest lap, with Jorp Overbeek in second. Will Friedman looks to be, by looks of things there, he's intercepting, that was Mikulas out through turn 5, but Will Friedman in third with Ian Oates in fourth, Antonio Angeletta in fifth, Mr. Burney in sixth, Lee Evans in seventh, with Mantas Mantinho in eighth, Robert Ogan in ninth, Wayne Trigg in 10th, Andres Tijavari still representing one of the closest fights, in fact the only fight on track at the moment, is in 11th, about 8 tenths away there from 10th. 12th place for Pumarol, 13th for Castle, and Mikulas in 14th. 3 DNFs in the race so far. Going back in then to catch action from Tijavari versus Trigg. Now seeing things from the point of view of Wayne Trigg, still holding off the last of the top 10s here. 30 minutes left to go in Zolder. And Trigg has had routine trouble out through turn 10. That was definitely one of the lighter takes of it there, out through the Jackie Xbox onto lap 28. In the last lap there, was slower by 3 tenths. Actually, no, never mind. I've just seen that was a 38, so he's faster by just under a second. Never mind. Will Friedman now only 6 seconds away from Jorp Overbeek. In turn, 12 seconds away from the race lead off of Declan Anderson. With 28.5 minutes left to go, I'd say the chances are still well within range here for Friedman. And taking a look here onto the wider order once again, 27.5 minutes left to go here in Zolder. Currently the closest gaps between Trigg and Tijavari, 1.7 seconds. We'll see what the update has it shown as, 1.4 now as they cross the line onto lap 29. Other close by gap to consider is Mr. Burney to Antonio Angeletta. You can see physically sharing the same stretch of tarmac, but it's also worth considering Lee Evans swiftly approaching from behind. Previous interval 3.1 seconds, new interval 2.5. So losing 6 tenths worth of a gap there through sector 1. This is going to be a rather interesting one following up here, because Lee Evans still within a chance here of a gold championship in season 11, albeit by a razor-thin 4-point margin. This could definitely open further doors there and solidify his position at the head of the table in the gold championship for season 11, if he can get up and past the 196 of Mr. Bernie. Into the pit lane we've just seen there in the background, that is Antonio Angeletta. Into the pit lane, coming to a stop, the number 1 back into his pit box. Is he possibly out of this race? Of course, his championship was already solidified. A very curious turn of events there for Angeletta here on the final round of the championship. Back into the paddock he goes. And that does change things around when it comes to the rest of the field, because it's now closed any kind of gap between, looking here, would have been the case between Bernie and Oates. Currently no word then from the number 1 as to what's going on there. We'll try to find any notes available during this time ourselves, but information right now still on the sparse end. But what we do understand, Angeletta came to a stop on this lap just gone and is now back into his pit box. No current indication on if he'll be coming back out. Meanwhile, we now get to see the formation of a brand new fight here, Bernie v Evans, as Evans now firmly on the charge up towards a division P3. In towards Boulderberg Haschbelbot. Fighting for an overall 5th for division, it's for 3rd. Staying on board then with the 44 as he takes up to the fight with the 196, nearly contacts down through at turn 10. The BMW really starting to have some troubles here. The back end of its flagging. 24.5 minutes left to go here in Zolder. Down through turn 1, the 196. Down through to Canal Box, you can see there, fidgeting under throttle. The 196's rear end cannot stay still, and that BMW could snap out wide here. Out through Lucien Bianchi box, you can see that Evans practicing a degree of hesitance, trying not to get collected here if that BMW does go out of control, which looks very, very likely after that first sector. Down through to the Kleiner chicane as we enter sector 2. Up through Butte at turn 6, up over the crest. Now a little dip to go along with it, in towards turn 7. More trouble for the 196, and sadly, Evans just hasn't the space on the road to try and get side by side with him. He'll have to wait for his chances to emerge down at Boulderberg Haschbelbot, as things do look to get quite a fair deal more interesting now. After a bit of a quiet spell on this race, we see that Evans bumps doors there with Bernie to go up towards 3rd in division, 5th overall on track. So Evans even further into that lead for the championship standings. It was a 19-point advantage when today's round starts. Had it been before his overtake to Mr. Bernie, would have been 15 points worth of an advantage to Ian Oates. The championship still would have been his by 4 points. But taking a look now as they find themselves division 2nd and 3rd, it's now only a 10-point advantage. So if Evans can finish where he stands right now, and Oates finishes where he stands, it'll be a case where he wraps the championship up, still in the lead by only 9 points here in Zolder. And Evans now putting 2 seconds up over Mr. Bernie. That kills off the chances for any rebuttal on that fight for 5th place. Looking around the track to see where any of the other nearest fights may be coming from, but now I think we're back into the quiet spell that played prelude towards today's action. There is worth noting though, 3.1 seconds and shrinking between Joop Overbeek and Will Friedman. when one considers the last time checking their gap was still 6 seconds between them, now having come down by half of that, and still 21, just under 22 minutes left to go here in round 10. There is a great chance to see a fight coming up for second place between Overbeek, who started from pole position today after a very confident qualifying, and Will Friedman, who voluntarily disqualified himself. Go to catch back on board then with Will Friedman out through to Canal Box at turn 3. On board then with the only platinum on this grid. A category now abandoned after the Platinum Championship was secured last round by Carlos Disch. Friedman, the only Platinum driver to attend round 10 today. It seems to be a lot more of a sort of fun race for him, an exhibition race if you were. Being the only driver from the top tier category of this championship, started voluntarily towards the back of the field after disqualifying himself. Otherwise, he had proven that he was more than definitely top 5 material in qualifying, being part of that pack of cars in the top 5, all front to back by less than a tenth of a second in the closest qualifying session we've seen on record this season. Now we see the case here for Will Friedman. Less than 3 seconds away from Overbeek. Slowly but surely chipping away there on the 84. That fight coming up, I'd say, just around the corner here for second place. See up in front there, Ryan Castle now being intercepted by Job Overbeek. Down through turn 6. Still a fair distance off though. We watch here from the point of view of Will Friedman down through to the tournament box at turn 7, forced to cut over part of that opening chicane. Now coming out through the turn 7 complex in towards turn 8, a Boulderberg Harshbelt box. 19 minutes left to go then here in Zolder. As he tries to find his way around lapped traffic then, Ryan Castle. As it stands, given the current finishing positions for the bronze drivers at this time, if Mantinho still holds that ground for the lead and Castle cannot emerge to second, Ryan Castle will sadly move to second in the bronze championship standings, with Mantinho taking the title on the last stop of season 11. And while he may not have realised it, Wayne Trigg has played an incredibly important part then in tonight's bronze championship fight. As right now, he's been both the barrier and the bastion of the position at hand at the lead of their championship between Mantinho and Castle. Because so far, him being in second means that Ryan Castle is in third and not making up enough points here to maintain his lead over Mantas Mantinho. Alternatively, if Trigg was leading over Mantinho, as we saw earlier in this race, that brought Castle close enough to hold his advantage. There's layers to this that we've not seen for some time. We do get to see a move in there as we were following. After troubles for Andres Tishavari, Wayne Trigg back up to 9th place. Looking to catch on board then if we can with the number 87. We do just quickly glance here to see the number 1 is back into this race, albeit multiple laps down now. Back into the car. As now we clock in to see the fight between Tishavari and Trigg. The possible counter-attack here by the number 87. Had some troubles down in Sector 3. That's what lost him the position in the first place. And in towards Sector 2 here on lap 35. With a bit of a bump there off the exit of the Kleiner chicane. Wayne Trigg loses a lot of ground there off to Tijavari. Making our way down through to the Turnerman bot. Meanwhile, going on at the same time as this is the continued procession for a fight of second between Overbeek and Friedman. That gap continuing to melt down there between the 208 and the 84. 1.5 now, 1.3 seconds. And whilst we've got an opportunity here in between fights, I have been alerted to some rather interesting news for endurance racing fans. Recently sighted over at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, of course, as you may know, a track currently not on the World Endurance calendar and hasn't been on the World Endurance calendar since the COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020. Well, Hertz Team Jota has been testing at Silverstone. And more poignantly, if you've been watching for the European Le Mans series, they returned to Silverstone only just last season. I've been saying this for some time in conversations with associates of mine, and I think I may have also mentioned it on stream before, but I think there is a growing mound of evidence to suggest that the World Endurance Championship is gearing up for a return to Great Britain. Silverstone was always going to be the destination for it, and now we're seeing even more involvement from WEC teams at this time, with this being the latest piece of evidence. Now, personally, do I think Silverstone should return to the calendar? More than absolutely. The more the merrier, and WEC is entering a new golden era in the hypercar era, and it only can stand to get better for the series. There's been a lot of investment into the sport in the last couple of years since the change away from the very expensive and very exclusive LMP1 regulations that was dominated by only 3 manufacturers in its trailing end, with manufacturers like Porsche, Audi and Toyota clearing house in the ending years of LMP1's life cycle, into the hypercar era that has now seen continued investment by multiple manufacturers, reigniting the fuel on their top-level prototype racing careers. For some, has been the first since the 50s. In others, has been the case since the end of the 2000s. Since its introduction, we've seen, of course, the return of Toyota and Porsche for the hypercar era, but we've also seen the introduction of Cadillac, Genesis. We've seen the reintroduction of Peugeot and Alpine Renault. We've seen the introduction of Aston Martin. We're seeing Ford and McLaren next year. And this would be McLaren's first top-level endurance racing project since the F1 GTR. Ferrari's project, which was a groundbreaker at the time, as the first one that they had as a factory team since 1957. Sorry, 1967. The point should still stand, though. This era of the World Endurance Championship has been unparalleled, and the latest signs of it going to Silverstone only continues to prove that point, that the calendar is going to get bigger. But away from the tangent about the World Endurance Championship, as we're starting to see action pick back up here between Tijavari and Trigg for 8th place. Also worth considering here, now up into 2nd during this time over Joop Overbeek, is Will Friedman in the 208. Just under 13 minutes left to go then here in Zolder, and the rain has gone away. The question there remains, with no further rain for the next 12.5 minutes, will any driver dare to take the risk to come into the pit lane and go onto those dry tyres? This could still shake up the odds on both remaining championships for the drivers. We saw a risky decision change the fates in gold and bronze. We could see that happen again. It is a huge double-edged sword, though, for these drivers, because they will have to sacrifice droves of time going back into the pit lane, whereas the other can opt to stay out. We have seen situations like this play out before, not too very long ago. We see then for Andres Tishavari, now firmly back into his fight with Wayne Trigg. Going to catch back on board then with the number 87 off the exit of turn 10. And I will say conditions have drastically improved. We've just got word as well of trouble for the 196. So this is huge in changing the fortunes here possibly for these two. Oates and Evans are now division 2nd and 3rd. We'll quickly check to see what that's going to do for their championship endeavors. That's a 10-point difference. Right now it still holds the grounds here for Evans, as now we lose the 196 of Mr. Burney. Robert Ogan into the pit lane, so he's willing to take a gamble here on those tyres. Also in is Antonio Angeletta. These two will be sort of the canaries for this strategy here. The test to see whether or not it's viable. Tishavari firmly now on the back end of the Ferrari of Wayne Trigg. 10 minutes left to go. Conditions seem still favourable for the wet tyres, but plenty of drivers are already willing to push the envelope out to go onto those dries. You see then for Angeletta, still holds in the pit lane. Robert Ogan very quickly back out of the pits there. Very quick stop for him. 10 minutes left to go then here in Zolder. There could be huge implications for the championships. The number 1 has a stop go for speeding in the pit lane, but that's inconsequential at this time for Antonio Angeletta, who right now resides at the back of the field. Wayne Trigg is going into the pits. Mantas Mantinho currently stays out in the lead here. Ryan Castle, if he opts to stay out as well, could find himself up into 2nd, but it's a bit of a tall order right now, as he's about halfway away from that of Wayne Trigg. Thomas Pumerol is now in as well. Jorp Overbeek is now into the pit lane, so a lot of drivers are willing to take that gamble and go onto the drier tyres. 9 minutes left to go here in Zolder. So far, no word then from Ryan Castle, who elects to stay out on the wets. Now going ahead of Wayne Trigg. Now the points gap between himself in terms of advantage, yes, it is still to Mantinho's sake, but only 10 points. Meaning of the current one that he needed, which was 15 points to go into the lead of this championship, will simply not do. He'll still be behind by 5 points if they finish where they are. So for Ryan Castle, his chances at a championship have just reignited. No current word then from the gold drivers, neither Anderson, Oates or Evans of the remaining trio in gold. Number 1 has 2 more laps to serve that stop go. We see that the 222 of Thomas Pumerol now suffers the same fate. Stop go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. Mantinho now in. We said that this change of condition could have huge implications. We were expecting original estimates anywhere between 5 and 8 minutes of dry racing left. We do find ourselves somewhere in the middle range of that as we come up towards the remaining 7 minutes of today's race. Ryan Castle down through Boulderberg Harshbelbocht, now met with a very difficult decision. He stays out in towards turn 10. Mantinho still yet to have dropped from the jack. Same story for Tishavari. So for Ryan Castle, down across the line and will go into the lead of bronze, meaning if he can hold his ground for the next 7 minutes, we see there the 26 has dropped from the jacks and is now on his way out, but there will be a considerable gap between these two. If he can hold his ground for the next 7 minutes, the bronze championship is his. Right now, as it stands, though, in the talks between these two, where Ian Oates would have otherwise needed, looking at it here, would have needed technically 19 points, but that would go level, so 20 points with Lee Evans. Will find himself to at least some modicum of advantage, but only by looks of things here by 10 points. The stop go 30 for Tishavari, now latest among the fray. That's 3 silver cars dished out with a stop go 30. We see him clash with the wall just off the exit there, trying to bed in on those dry tyres. Falling in behind Wayne Trigg. The back end on the Mustang seems quite squirrely now, going back on to those dry tyres for the first time since the race start. An hour and looking here, an hour and 9 minutes ago. Will Friedman is now only 1.8 seconds from Declan Anderson, so going to catch on board if we can here with the 208. We'll leave you on board with the Mustang, looking at a possible interception of the race lead. I'll be back to you in just a moment's time. He was 2 seconds faster in that last lap just gone. Still on board with Will Friedman in the upcoming fight for the race lead. Taking a look at the wider order of things, then Ryan Castle leads in bronze, meaning if he can hold his ground away from Mantas Mantinho now on dry tyres, as the rain subsides here in Zolder, he will hold on to that lead of the bronze championship and will take its title here for season 11. As it stands for the golds, neither Oates nor Evans willing to come in to the pit lane. I think it will be a case these two find themselves in a really uncomfortable stalemate now as they stay out on those wet tyres. Neither one of them wanting to be the first one to pull the trigger and come into the pit lane. We see in the case here of Oates, 15.5 seconds up the road from Evans. He's being intercepted by all of the dry tyre runners at the moment. We see they're unlapping themselves. Is Robert Ogan and Antonio Angeletta. As it stands to be the case here, that number 6 and the number 44 caught in an old Western draw for pit lane runs. Ryan Castle having to try and hold his ground here for just a few more laps of racing. As it stands to be the case then, with Declan Anderson and Will Friedman up at the front of the field, 4 minutes left to go in this race, roughly 1.5 minutes per lap. Currently puts us in the range of about 3 more laps before the end of this race today. Heading up through turn 5, 222 still has to serve that stop go. That's for Thomas Pumerol. You see here for Friedman, up through turn 6. And again, forced to cut that second part, so there's just not enough rotation now for the Ford. Very lofty in its change of strategy. Down towards Boulderberg, Harshbildbocht. Neither of them willing to come into the pit lane. 3 minutes left to go then, so 2 more laps of racing to be had here in Zolder. And in the pit lane goes Andres Tishavari to serve their stop go. Meanwhile, further down the order, very close at the moment, we see from the 96. Looking to intercept Ryan Castle in the number 77. McLaren running scared there. You can see now sharing the same stretch of tarmac with that of Mantas Mantinho, his rival in bronze. Right now presents to be the case that Castle would have to fall to 3rd in division, with Mantinho taking its lead for that championship to go back in favour of the number 26. If they haven't come into the pits before this point, I'd say it's highly unlikely that they'll be doing it now as we head in towards that last lap not long from this point. Will Friedman and Declan Anderson. Meanwhile, we see here Ryan Castle swiftly falls in behind that of Robert Ogan. Mantas Mantinho now barreling down onto him here at turn 6. Bear in mind, if Mantinho gets the lead here in bronze over Ryan Castle, all Castle has to do is finish in second, but it's contact between the pair of them down at the tournament box. Up in front, we see here for Robert Ogan, battling with a lapped Antonio Angeletta down through to turn 8. So Mantas Mantinho leads in bronze, but it won't be enough to solidify that points gap up over Ryan Castle. 15 points coming in towards today's event, and as it stands between these two, there won't be enough of a points benefit to Mantinho to give him the championship. He'll miss out by about 5 points. Will Friedman still in pursuit here of Declan Anderson, who's looking not only for his second win in gold, but his first outright race win this season. These two holding out strong on the wet tyres as wet weather subsides here in Zolder. Meanwhile, as it stands then for Oates, Division 2nd, with Evans Division 3rd. It looks to be the case where Evans may have the championship away from Oates by 9 points. Down through turn 7 then for the last time on board with Declan Anderson and Will Friedman, who regardless of their position among the front row will be division winners in gold and platinum. But they're in for the full stake of it now. They just want that overall race win to themselves by the end of today. Out through turn 9. After what's been a very confusing race for these drivers up towards turn 10, they've faced hell and high water here in the last round of season 11, but round turn 10 at the Jackie Xbox we go to the checkered flag, and it's Declan Anderson to see not only his second gold win, but his first overall race win here in season 11. Will Friedman finishes for the lead of platinum as the only attending platinum driver, waiting then to see the final tax of it here for the two Mercedes cars of Oates and Evans. By way they stand at the moment, Evans will have the championship off of Oates by 9 points, starting at a gap of 19 points today. Mantinho fights with Ogan down towards the line. As it stands to be the case, Europe Overbeek will see the silver division win as second is locked out there. Robert Ogan, great hustle today. Mantas Mantinho wins in bronze. Sadly, won't be enough for the championship today as we see him down towards the line. He's done more than enough in this time, but by only 5 points between himself and Mantinho. Ryan Castle is your bronze division champion. A great hustle for this one today. Very tough conditions to play against and a gamble on the tyres. Ryan Castle championed by 5 points away to Mantinho. It's going to be exciting to see how these two pick up on their next chapter of the story. Meanwhile, we see then 6th for Oates. And across the line there, Evans, 9-point advantage as he sweeps onto the nose there of Jorp Overbeek. Lee Evans holds that lead of the championship by 9 points over Ian Oates and is your gold division champion. So your 4 champions of this season here in season 11 of VSR. In platinum, Carlos Disch. In gold, Lee Evans. In silver, Antonio Angeletta, and in bronze, Ryan Castle. What a series it's been then here in season 11. We'll try to get a word out of the drivers. We do have confirmations on interviews for at least silver and gold, but we'll quickly chase up on any more information regarding bronze before we start the interview panel. Right now, no response to our original RSVP for Ryan Castle, so unless instructed otherwise, we'll just have the interviewees from silver and gold. Sadly, Carlos Disch can't be with us today. He's away on holiday, so can't be here for the interview after becoming the three-time champion of VSR in its highest category. We'll go to chat in, though, with that of gold and silver's champions. Do just give us one moment. Having some communications troubles trying to get in touch there with Antonio Angeletta, so we'll instead try to interview that of Lee Evans, who is now your Season 11 Gold Division champion. We'll try and get a word in from him in just a moment's time. And our first on our two interviews today then, Season 11's Gold Division champion, Lee Evans. Lee, how are you feeling?
Relieved, to be honest. I thought I had a little bit of an issue with during the first pit stops. My pit box seemed to be right next to a part of the building that stuck out more than normal. So when I went into the pits, I bounced off the wall and caused 15 seconds worth of damage, which put me to the back of the pack.
Oh yeah, we can actually see that a little bit there on our feed at the moment. That sort of viewing area. I think it's like a marshal's post by the looks of things.
Yeah, well, my pit box had literally like sort of morphed into it. So as I went in there, it bounced me off the wall, and then I had to drive back into the pit box again. So yeah, I think it was about 15 seconds worth of damage, and then I went from, I think I was running 4th at the time down to about 13th, I think.
Well, up and down through the field, and you've held on to the championship lead there by only 9 points. That's somehow not the smallest gap throughout any of these four divisions for the championship standings, but it is still an impressive one nonetheless, though. You've had a phenomenal season, so all power to you. How are you feeling then for the run-in towards, say, Season 12, for example?
I'm going to have a good break first. Obviously, being one of the owners of the league as well, I think it's been quite a successful Season 11 this has, so I think us and the other owners are going to have a well-deserved break, and hopefully go bigger and better next year. But yeah, I'm just grateful that I've won it. Double champ does what he wants.
Well, all power to you, Lee. It's been a great season for you. Look forward to seeing what you can do then in Season 12. Some R&R now for the next couple of weeks before we get back into discussions with VSR Season 12. I believe we may have more information on that when we speak over with Antonio in a few minutes' time. So have a wonderful break, though.
Yeah,
very well done this season.
Can I just say one thing? A thank you for everyone that's made Season 11 successful. Moving on to SimGrid was a big thing for VSR, and I think it's paid off. We had a few rocky starts towards the start of the season. I think everyone sort of behaved themselves towards the end. Shame about the turnout today, but yeah, onwards and upwards. The next season is going to be much bigger.
Indeed, indeed. Right then, well, that's where we'll leave it with you for the time being. We're going to go and try and reach out to Antonio and then wrap up here. It's been a fantastic season nonetheless, so we're looking forward to seeing what goes next for VSR into Season 12.
Wonderful. Thanks very much.
Take care. And so that was your Gold Division champion for Season 11, now double Gold champion Lee Evans. And our next interviewee at this time will be the Silver Division champion We'll try to reach out to him. We did have a few troubles reaching out the first time, so we're going to try this a second time, and if it's not successful, then sadly that's where we'll leave it on the interviewee panel, as still no response on the RSVP from Ryan Castle, your Bronze Division champion. So one last attempt, and otherwise then we'll wrap up. Sadly, again, doesn't seem to be anyone reaching through there. We're just going straight through to whatever the Discord equivalent of voicemail would be. Well, sadly, that concludes our interview block, but it also concludes the championship, and what a championship it's been then. And the first outright race win then of the season for Declan Anderson at the last stop of today, his second Gold Division win to go alongside it. Your winners by division then, Anderson, Friedman, Overbeek and Mantinho. Your champions, though, by division, Deesh, looking here, Deesh, Evans, Angeletta and Castle. That's all from us here on TRTN. We were hoping to have more information in our chat with Antonio Angeletta, your Silver Division champion, on talking about Season 12, but due to some kind of connection issues or communications problems, sadly we've not got any word through, so we'll have to leave it over to him. Actually, hang on just a moment. There may be an update to that one, just one moment. Sadly not. Third time was attempted to be the charm, but no dice. That's all from us here on TRTN, and we'll hope to see you in a few weeks' time then. I believe actually might be even longer than that for Season 12. I've been told quite a sizable gap coming up then, where the owners will be taking quite a lot of R&R, and rightfully so. It's been a brilliant season here in Season 11 of VSR. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care, and good night.